Several years ago, the American College of Medical Genetics Foundation made a decision to recognize individuals who'd made extraordinary contribution in the field of medical genetics, particularly in translating genetics into clinical practice. The foundation doesn't plan to introduce this award every year, but will do so only when a truly remarkable person is identified. The first award was given last year in Orlando to Dr. Arno Motulski, whose contributions are so grand that it will set the tone for the award in perpetuity. I'm most pleased this year to present the award to Dr. David Rimoin. His selection will guarantee that the award continues on the same high plane as was established by Dr. Motulski's selection. Dr. Rimoin is chairman of the Medical Genetics Institute and holds the Steven Spielberg Family Chair at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He is professor of pediatrics, medicine, and human genetics, as well as program director of the Intercampus Medical Genetics Training Program at the David Geffen School of Medicine, University of California, Los Angeles. Dr. Rimoin also served as chair of pediatrics at Cedars-Sinai for 18 years, and prior to that was chief of the Division of Medical Genetics at Harvard UCLA Medical Center. This audience is extremely well acquainted with David's remarkable and extensive research accomplishments in the field of medical genetics. These have focused particularly on short stature and skeletal dysplasias and hereditary disorders of connective tissue. He serves as director of the International Skeletal Dysplasia Registry, the largest such registry in the world. His peer-reviewed publications near 400, and his book, Emery and Rimoin's Practice of Medical Genetics, is in its 5th edition. Importantly, Dave is one of those hardy souls who met in La Jolla, California 20 years ago to organize the American College of Medical Genetics and served as its founding president. He later served as president of the American College of Medical Genetics Foundation. He has served in leadership positions in virtually every national medical genetics organization in the country. His singular accomplishments have been recognized with his selection to the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences. Dr. Rimoin is a medical graduate of McGill University in Montreal and received his PhD in human genetics with Victor McCusick at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. He has since received the singular honor of being elected to the Johns Hopkins Society of Scholars. He has also received an honorary doctorate of humane letters from the Finch University of Health Sciences in Chicago. In addition to his many research contributions, his administrative leadership and in various genetics organizations as well as academic pediatrics, David has made enormous contributions in the training of the next generation of geneticists. Over the years, during his time at Washington University in St. Louis and at Harvard, UCLA, and at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, David has mentored and or trained over 100 MD, PhD, or MD, PhD pre- and postdoctoral students. We cannot overlook his wonderful family and his dedication and accomplishments in this sphere. With all of his professional efforts, he has always found time to put his family first. In his long list of accomplishments, we must also recognize David's long-term and devoted staff, who I think is seated in the front here along with his family. And that says a great deal about the man that we recognize here today. Now, after I've recognized all of these important contributions to medical genetics and his family and staff, I was, of course, very interested in knowing a bit more about some of his personal activities. Of course, we all know that David has lived and worked in the heart of Hollywood for many years. So to get information about the broader community activities in which he's been involved, I was fortunate enough to get in contact with the staff of the co-hosts of Entertainment Tonight, Mary Hart and Mark Steins, to find out the latest word on the street about David. The co-host of this TV program always has the latest information about the activities of the Hollywood movers and shakers, as I think you all well know. They told me that David was building on his long career as an expert in Los Angeles in the restaurant scene and was making headway toward becoming a writer for the Zagat Restaurant Guide in L.A. In the meantime, if you happen to be in L.A. in the meantime, before he actually starts writing FACMG, touch base with him. His recommendations are beyond reproach. And for those of you who work with David and hear his regular comedy routine, the report from Mary and Mark in Entertainment Tonight that David has recently had highly successful trials as a stand-up comic, both at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard and at the Improv Olympic on Hollywood Boulevard, certainly was not a surprise to any of us. It is very clear to me that the selection of David Rimoin as the second American College of Medical Genetics Lifetime Achievement Award is extremely well supported by his many accomplishments in research, teaching, and administration as in the field of medical genetics. It gives me great pleasure to present the 2010 American College of Medical Genetics Foundation Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. David L. Rimoin. And
Thank you very much, Rod, for that incredible summary of what I've been trying to do for these last years, although I haven't lived up yet to the Comedy Store one. My family keeps telling me I should stay away from it as much as possible. But thank you so much. It's indeed a great honor, especially following in the footsteps of Arno Metulsky, a true giant in the field. This award celebrates my 56th year in genetics. I was 17 years old. As a college sophomore, I entered a new honors program in genetics at McGill. All I wanted to do was find a way to get into med school. I started to work for Clark Fraser, filing reprints and helping with his cleft lip and palate mouse work. Every morning I would examine several hundred mice for vaginal plugs to time their gestation. I was certain I'd be a hit in What's My Line. However, I soon learned that I liked human bottoms better than mouse bottoms. And it's no wonder I didn't go into OBGYN. Clark taught me about the joys of research and how to think critically. I was accepted to McGill Medical School. He arranged a new program where I could do a master's degree over the summers of med school and worked on the genetics of epilepsy with the matracuses. The giants in medical genetics at that time were primarily internists, Victor McCusick, Arno Metulsky, and Jim Neal, and I chose to do my residency in medicine. At Victor McCusick's invitation, I went to complete my residency at Johns Hopkins and realized what a wonderful place it is. Victor had just started a PhD program in human genetics, and I was able to pursue a fellowship and receive a PhD in 3 years. Just ahead of me in the program was Alan Emery, and a decade later we met in the Hotel Russia in Moscow and formulated plans for principles and practice of medical genetics. The 6th edition, which will be a multimedia publication, is now in the planning stages. As a medical resident, I was intrigued by endocrinology and became convinced that diabetes mellitus was not a single disease, but a symptom complex due to many different genetic and environmental causes. One approach to this problem was to study diabetes in different ethnic groups. I joined my classmate Jack Psyche, who was here, to study diabetes in the Navajo and compare it to the Amish. This hypothesis led to the receipt of the American Diabetes Association's Essay Award and set the stage for Jerry Rotter's later studies of the genetics of common disease. Victor taught me the power of clinical research and the value of studying rare diseases to prove basic biologic principles. And while I was a resident and fellow in genetics, I came across this woman who looked all the world like a pituitary dwarf, but she was not hypogonadal and had a child. We did not know at that time that you could have growth hormone deficiency without having gonadotropin deficiency, and my colleagues at Hopkins and I documented that, and we went on and proved that a lot of these genetic aspects of growth hormone deficiency existed. These patients reminded me of the National Geographic pictures I'd seen of pygmies, and Victor contacted Luca Cavalli-Schwartz, who was doing population genetic studies in the Central African Republic. I joined Luca's team on 3 occasions, and we showed the pygmies were resistant to growth hormone, or IGF-1. My daughter Annie is an epidemiologist who is presently studying monkeypox in the Congo, and she plans to collect pygmy DNA so that we can now search for their molecular defect. When I would go to LPA meetings looking for more growth hormone deficient dwarfs, the disproportionate dwarfs complained that I was ignoring them. I realized how little was known about their biology and gradually switched my interests. I then went to St. Washington